that sounds good. All right, do you want to get started, or shall we wait a little bit longer? We've got a couple more people that have joined, so welcome, and please be sure to write your name and 3 important things that you spend money on each month. And you can go ahead and also add where you're joining from. So people kind of all over the state joining, it looks like. We'll give it just another minute.
Well, I'm kind of sad. I think today's going to be the last nice day weather-wise. It's supposed to get colder and I might have to turn my furnace on. I wasn't looking forward to that.
I actually gave in last week one day because it felt pretty cold up in the upper floor of the house. So decided I should do it. That was just one day. And then it got nice again. So that was nice, but we could turn it off again. All right, why don't we get started? Well, we want to welcome you to Money Moments. Just to let you know, we are doing this webinar tonight as well as one next week. These are 2 webinars that came up as a result of work that we have been doing, a collaboration with PACER, Minnesota Statewide Family Engagement Center, and the University of Minnesota Extension. And we'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go forward. Again, we want to welcome all of you. I see people are adding their information in the chat. That's wonderful. Thanks for joining us tonight. We also want to make sure that we talk to our PACER partners here. And Sharman, if you would just want to unmute and say hi and introduce yourself quickly.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Sharman Davis Barrett, and I'm with the Minnesota Statewide Family Engagement Center, which is located at PACER Center. And we're very happy to be in this collaborative relationship with the University of Minnesota Extension and being able to present to the community information on money matters, financial literacy. So I think there's a lot of good information that's been prepared for you this evening, and I want to thank you so much for joining us. So Lori, I'll hand it back to you.
Great, thank you. And so you see the information there on the Minnesota Statewide Family Engagement Center at PACER Center. And there's one more slide that gives a little bit of an explanation of what is being done. And you see they're assisting families to increase knowledge about rights and responsibility in regular education, strengthen ability to advocate for children, build skills for engagement and effective communication, and then working with school districts as well, increasing knowledge of how to engage with families and those from low income, ethnically and linguistically diverse communities. So it gives you a little bit of information about what Minnesota Statewide Family Engagement Center does. Now a little bit of information about the University of Minnesota Extension. We are part of the University of Minnesota, and we provide community-based education. And we are in 87 counties across the state, as well as we have regional offices throughout the state. And you want to move on, Sarah? Thank you. Sarah and I work in the Center for Family Development within Extension. And in our center, we are working with families and those who serve families. Our goal is to help families make informed decisions, and that leading to greater health, resilience, and well-being. And particularly Sarah and I work with Family Resiliency and focus on family relationships and family resource management. So moving on then, we are going to do a poll. Let me find our poll here and we'll launch that. We're just interested to know if you are here for personal use, professional use, or a little bit of both. So you can pick which of those apply to you. Okay, and we have 100%. I think that's the first time I've ever seen 100% in a poll. That's wonderful. So hopefully you're seeing this now. We have 14% personal use, 43% for professional use, and 43% for both personal and professional. So thanks for participating in that. We'll stop sharing those results now and continue on. And just to give you a little bit of a background of how this happened to come about, these webinars, this summer we met with families that participated in Money Moments webinar just to find out what kind of topics would be of interest to families. We talked about, what were the financial topics that might be of interest. And now the result is we're back this fall with these 2 webinars to learn about topics that were identified. And you see again, October 19th today and next Tuesday as well, the 26th. And what we asked of people is, taking a look at some of these topics. What would you be interested in learning about? And you can see everything there from planning income and expenses to saving and investing, finding and keeping housing, paychecks, understanding taxes, making money decisions, impulse buying, keeping your money safe, financial implications from COVID. So we had a wide range of topics that we were asking about. And responses that we received included communicating with others about money, credit reports, planning a budget. If you see a little asterisk next to it, it was identified more than once. So investing, saving, dealing with debt, making money decisions, teaching children and teens about money, and setting goals. We asked about financial goals and people identified, again, you see the asterisk with a couple of these, to be debt-free, save enough for our forever home, stop living paycheck to paycheck and having more than enough, to have extra funds to save monthly and to have extra money for emergencies, have no debts, and again, stop living paycheck to paycheck, being able to have enough and more. So we've got a number of responses like that. We also asked about financial capability and well-being topics, and those included student loans, learning jargons and terms. We're going to try to incorporate some of these in the content that we're delivering as we go along as well. Knowing what questions to ask when making planning decisions, planning tools, Social Security information and benefits in retirement, and how to educate youth. So Sarah and I sat down and tried to pull together what we could out of all the responses that we received and pull it into what we call 2 content buckets for tonight and for next week. And so tonight we're looking at the basics, looking at goal setting, managing or making money decisions, and knowing what questions to ask when making those decisions. You see the different color of highlighting there with communicating and some of the topics there. We're going to try to embed those in what we do tonight and next week as well. And budgeting then also, looking at planning a budget and that idea of stop living paycheck to paycheck. Hopefully if you're planning a budget, then we can get out of that paycheck to paycheck. And we know where our money goes and hopefully are able to plan and use that money appropriately then. Next week, you see, we'll have credit and debt and saving and investing. And so we will be, again, dealing, it's going to be a lot of content next week We've just been working on some of the activities around that session. And there's so much to all of this. We want to make sure that we give you good resources and such to go along with it. So we'll start getting into what we have for tonight. And Sarah, you're going to take the next one, I believe.
Great. Thanks, Lori. So I'm excited about what we have laid out for this week and next week. And there are some topics that didn't make the 2 evening agenda. And we're hoping to continue working with Pacer and perhaps offer some more sessions into the winter and into 2022, so we can look at addressing teaching children about money and some of the other topics that were identified. But we figured we can't do it all in 2 evenings. So we really wanted to focus. So throughout the session tonight, we are going to have you use the chat box, and you can find that on the bottom of your screen should be a little word bubble. If you don't see it, there might be 3 dots that say more. And so there'll be times when we're going to pose questions and we want you to engage and chat with us. So first, we want you to share a financial goal that you have for yourself or your family. Go ahead and take a few minutes and share that in the chat. Lori and I, when we were planning too, we talked about how some goals might not feel like a financial goal, but most of our goals have a financial implication. All right, Susan shares to be able to contribute to your grandchildren's college and trade school costs. Wonderful. Investing for retirement, Alice, yes. Melissa, saving for an emergency fund. Raven has a goal of a better home. Commit, housing, food, and car. Financial goals to support client and retirement investments. Those are all very great goals. And Kathleen shared to reduce debt, prepare for retirement. My husband and I share many of those similar goals. Thank you for sharing. So we know that goals are typically based on our values. And values are a reflection of who we are, our culture, and our own unique heritage. And we all have pretty unique values. Values also help us establish priorities, which is spelled wrong, and make decisions we can live by. So the values really kind of guide, they're kind of our compass as we're making goals and as we live our lives. Values are also really important and lasting beliefs. They help us think about what's good or bad and desirable or undesirable. And so we may not pause and think about, well, what are my values telling me to do when I'm making a goal or when I'm making decisions? Oftentimes we don't name them, but they're kind of those unwritten rules or those unwritten influences that we have in our lives. So when we think about goals, we may have a wide variety of goals in a lot of different areas in our lives. I saw some goals related to education for grandchildren. I saw some, they might be physical goals. So the housing would fit in with that. The financial goals, I heard about retirement and emergency funds. We may also have some goals related to pleasure. It might be a vacation, or we've got a few people that live up by a DL in the lakes area. So you might be saving for a boat or a pontoon, right? We may have public service goals or career goals or attitude, artistic. But I really like this visual because it helps us think about the variety of goals that we might have. And they may not be financial specific, but many of them have financial implications. When we think about money goals, again, they're based on our values, the thing that kind of guides who we are. They're personal. They should be personal. We should be setting goals for ourselves. I would be super sad if someone set all of my goals for me, because that doesn't work. Goals should be realistic and specific, and they may require you to invest money, time, and effort. So most goals are not super simple or easy to do. And our goals may change as our income, interests, or lifestyles change. I know Lori and our colleague Becky are doing a webinar tomorrow on generations. And I think about as we go through the life cycle and we age, right? Several people mentioned grandchildren, right? 20 years ago, we were paying attention to our children. We still do that, but now that the grandchildren have taken priority. As we graduate from high school, we might be looking at furthering education or getting that first job and getting that first apartment, and life changes. If we seek out a partner in life and start a family, we might get married or divorced. So lots of transitions and things are happening as we move through that. And hopefully we're always moving to a better place, whatever that means for each of us. Someone indicated Raven did a better home, right? So we're always hoping that we're moving in that direction, whatever that means for us. All right. How many of you are familiar with SMART goals? Some of you have your cameras on, so you can go ahead and raise your hand, either physically or in the reaction buttons. There's a hand raising. Yep. So we truly believe in SMART goals because it really helps us. So it really helps us make SMART goals. It helps us think them through clearly, so we have a better chance of being successful with them. And so you can see the SMART. So they're very specific. They're measurable. I've also seen mutual and motivated for the M. A, able to reach, or action oriented. R, relevant. I've also seen realistic, resources, review and revise. And then the T, the time bound. We want to put a time frame on those goals so that we can step back and determine if we were successful or not. So Lori and I came up with a goal. And so, for example, one goal might be to give my 3 children ice skates as a holiday gift. Right, pretty open-ended, but we're looking at 3 sets of ice skates. And right now, if we were looking at the Christmas holiday, if that were the holiday we were shooting for, we've got just over a couple of months. So we worked that into a SMART goal. And so we figured we had 8 weeks. We did a little research and we thought maybe, what did we decide? $40 on each set of ice skates. So there were some less expensive ones, some more expensive ones, but we decided about $40. So we were in need of $120. And we did the math with the 8 weeks, and we decided we need to just save $15 a week in order to have those 3 sets of ice skates. And by making this into a SMART goal, it, excuse me, really helps us think about the steps that we need to take. And each week we can evaluate, how are we doing? Did we save the $15? And so as we go through the 8 weeks, we'll know if we're on track or not. And when we get to the end of the 8 weeks, if we haven't been able to set aside as much as we wanted, we might be looking at a cheaper pair of skates, or we might go to the used sporting goods store and buy a used set of skates, that type of thing. But SMART goals really help us set us up for success as we're making that planning. All right. Okay, so several of you shared your goals in the chat. We would like you to pause for just a moment, and you don't need to share this piece unless you want to. But we want you to rewrite your goal as a SMART goal. So take just a minute. Hopefully you've got a piece of paper and pencil there. and you can doodle a little bit and take your general goal that you had and try to rewrite that as a SMART goal.
And if you want to share it, you can certainly share it either by unmuting or sharing in the chat.
This can be challenging to do sometimes as well. You know, the ice skate example was pretty simple. Many of the goals that folks shared, a better home, invest for retirement, save for an emergency fund. Those are bigger types of goals, but we can really break those down a little bit so that we are specific, measurable, able to reach, relevant, time bound.
You know, one thing to remember also is with it being time bound, you can adjust the time frame too. So if I said I wanted to have, you know, a certain amount of money by the time I retire and I had a date for retirement, then, you know, if that doesn't work out and I feel like I really need to have that amount of money, you can adjust the timeline. Or maybe you're adjusting the amount of money, you know, so as you're sharing those different pieces, the nice thing about setting a SMART goal is you can tell if you need to adjust any of those pieces along the way.
That's a really good point, Lori. And when we write items as SMART goals, it's going to inform our spending plan or our budget, right? So if I decided that I needed, I'm going to go back one slide here, maybe. If I decided I needed $15 a week for ice skates, I'm going to build that into my spending plan or my budget. The same would be true if I wanted to start to enhance that emergency fund or be putting more money into my retirement fund. And that also informs other sorts of decisions. I'm wanting to really work on that retirement fund. I may be choosing to not go on such a large vacation because I want to put more into my retirement. Is anybody interested in sharing their goal as a SMART goal? No worries if you don't. If you're interested in sharing, go ahead and put it in the chat and we'll take a look at that. We have got another opportunity to chat. We would like to know what influences your money decisions, who is involved in those decisions, and how do you prioritize choices? When we're thinking about that decision making.
Again, that's a lot of questions. So if it's easier to say it out loud rather than write it, feel free.
We have 3 grown children, and when the children were in the house, they definitely influenced our money decisions for the good or bad, and they still influence a bit as young adults.
That's one of the things we're going to be talking about tomorrow as part of the generations too. Because there are certain generations that have more influence over their families and their money decisions. So that's kind of interesting that you said that, Sarah.
Yeah, oftentimes our family of origin as well influences us. I can kind of hear my mom or dad's voice in the back of my head when I'm making different decisions. Sometimes I listen to that voice and sometimes I don't. Right. Well, if you want to respond to these questions in the chat, go ahead and do that. We're going to move along here. So when making a decision, we like to use the acronym DECIDE. So decide to make a sensible decision. And sensible is whatever makes sense for you in your life at any given time. There's no way I can say, well, that was an unsensible decision, right? Only you can define what that means for you. So first you need to define your goal, and we looked at SMART goals, right? Or what is it you want to do or achieve? And then we need to establish criteria for an acceptable outcome. And we're going to be looking at the ice skating example in just a minute. And then choose 2 or 3 good options or acceptable options. And again, you define what good means. You identify pros and cons of the options. You decide on the best option that matches the criteria you identified, and then you evaluate the results. So let's take a look at the ice skate decision. So our goal is to purchase those 3 pairs of skates for a holiday gift. As Lori and I were figuring this out, we thought criteria for the skates we wanted to buy, they should be affordable and durable. We looked at options and was like new or used, or we could go to the store and look at 2 or 3 different sets of skates on the shelf as well. That would be an option. But when we looked at new or used, we thought, well, new, the pro is that they're going to have nice sharp blades. The con is they're going to be more expensive than the used option. When we thought about the used option, they're going to be less expensive, but those blades are probably going to need to be sharpened. And so there's going to be an additional expense with that. Now we just put question marks here on deciding the best option, because again, we would each do that individually. But we also, I think one of the most important pieces is to always evaluate results, right? So maybe we realize that used set of skates didn't last. I should have bought the new ones because halfway through the season, we had to get a second set of skates. Or maybe we realized, wow, my kids didn't go skating as much as I thought they were going to be. I should have bought the used ones and not paid so much for new ones. And so always thinking about, what did I learn from this decision? Would I make a similar decision if the circumstances were similar in the future? So would I do this again? Would I tweak it a little bit? And so we really like this decision-making process because, again, it makes us slow down a little bit and helps us think about the criteria, right? What's most important to us? We could have just jumped into making a decision, but unless we know what our criteria is, it's difficult to make that informed or good decision for ourselves. Any questions or thoughts? All right. Oh, we've got a few people sharing here. Sue shared that what is happening in our lives at the time, my husband and I sometimes are girls on who's helping make decisions. And I'm going to go back here to this question. So those are the folks that were involved, and you prioritize based on what's really needed for your family. And we have a slide on wants versus needs down the road a little bit. So that's really important. Kathleen shared that her husband influences their decisions and they make those together, and your priorities generally line up. So that is super great when your partner in life and you think similarly. Kathy's shaking her head. Yep. I'm sure there are times, right, when you're coming at things from a different direction, and that's where we have to learn how to compromise and communicate, and not always our first choice, but we need to live with the other people as well. So thank you, Kathleen and Susan, for sharing. All right, I am going to, Lori, I did your decision making. I'm going to let you take budgeting. All right.
That's fine. I would have let you keep on going if you wanted to, but
no, I'm going to have you do budgeting so I can.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So the next section we're dealing with then is budgeting. And let's see if you've ever seen or heard this quote before. By failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. Have you heard that one before? Okay, I see heads nodding. Okay. Oftentimes we'll use some of these quotes just to talk with, we've used this with working with youth as well, and talked about what does that mean? And try to get some understanding of what they see or hear in that quote. But so if we are planning our money then we are making a plan in order to succeed. We are making a plan that we will then follow through on. And so that's where we're going to go with this. And we just want to know, and again, in the chat or by unmuting if you choose, what is the most challenging thing that you think of when you're thinking about making and managing a budget or a spending plan? What is the most challenging thing? Okay, sticking to it. Thanks, Raven. Okay, yep, Susan, sticking to it. Great. Same. Okay. Yeah, that really truly is a difficult piece. And oftentimes that's why people don't make a plan, is because they think that, well, I'm never going to follow it anyway. And so that's important that we know that up front, you know, what can we do to make it something that works for you, right? And so it's got to include components that we're all going to follow through with. So let's take a look at.
I'm going to jump in there real quick too, Lori. I think when we make a spending plan or a budget, sometimes folks want to be so detailed down to the last penny. And it is really difficult to do that. And so we want our budget or a spending plan to be specific enough to help us move in the direction that we want, but not so complex that we get frustrated and give up on it.
Well, and in the same vein, I would say that, you know, if we put in a number, that doesn't mean that that's the number we stick to. It means that we've set up something, some kind of a aim that we're reaching for related to that. It doesn't mean that that's going to be the same all the time. And so, you know, we have to realize that it has to be flexible. We have to be able to work within it. So let's take a look. Do you know where your money is going? We're going to be sending out some handouts for you as well. And Charmin's going to get those out. We hope that'll be like around the end of the week or maybe early next week. And this will be part of what you will find, keeping track of your spending. And so the idea of this is to keep track of your spending for 1 month. All the purchases that you make, whether they're with cash, debit card, credit, or check, keep track of everything. And write all the purchases on a worksheet. And you might use receipts, you might use a checkbook register, you know, you might use an app depending on what your comfortability is with different types of tracking. Now, people will say, oh, whole month, that's so difficult to do. Even just a couple of weeks can make a difference in terms of finding what you're actually doing with your money. And so just to give it a try, and you might be surprised that a month will be easier than you think it would be, just to give it a try and to track those expenses. I knew someone that used to carry around a little notebook and he'd write down all the expenses, you know, throughout the day. Happened to be at that time dating that guy, and when we'd go out to dinner, he'd sit there and write it down too. That was a little intimidating. But you know, if you're trying to follow a plan, it's something that that you really should do, and it's a way to know what you're spending, so that when you get into the budget and make the plan, then you know you're being accurate. Okay, so our components of a spending plan, we're using the bubblegum machine so that you think about everything that goes in, and then we'll see how it comes out. But we're putting in those income sources right now. So think about all the things that are income: wages from a job, allowance, unemployment, Social Security, gifts, any sales you might have. Financial aid would be included in that. Interest income would be included. So anything that is coming into the household for spending, okay? Here's the spending plan form that we use. And again, you'll be receiving this. And one thing that I like about this, and you'll see it when you get the form, you can probably see it on here. We have a this month column and a next month column. And that really sets you up not only to be dealing with what's happening right now, because it's real easy to be focused on where our money is right now and what's coming in and what has to go out. But if we have that next month column, we can be starting to think a little bit further out about what happens with our money, right? So is your income going to be the same this month and next month? If not, then when we get to managing the plan, that's something that you'll need to adjust and to think about that. And it helps us to do a little bit of planning when we can see that on the form in front of us. Okay, so then we have the next piece is the expenses, the money that we spend, and you see all of those bubblegum balls rolling out of there. So they're coming out. So we've got income into the bubblegum machine, and then now we're doing expenses out. So those include fixed expenses, those things that remain the same all the time, those flexible expenses, you know, the things that change from month to month, and then those periodic or non-monthly expenses. You know, some people will say the unexpected. Well, they're not unexpected. You just have to plan that they don't happen on a monthly basis. They happen periodically. And so we can still plan on a monthly basis for those items. It's just that they don't necessarily happen in the same time frame as other expenses do.
Both Lori and I are accredited financial counselors, and at times we sit down with folks and work on budgets with them. I do a couple times a month. I work with gamblers who are at a 30-day residential treatment program, and I really find that those periodic or non-monthly expenses are the ones that throw families into crisis. Because they haven't thought about those. But as Lori said, most of those things we can really think about. I was joking about needing to turn on my furnace perhaps later this week as it gets colder. To heat my home, we have a propane tank in the backyard. Depending upon how cold it is, we fill it up anywhere from 1 to 3 times a year. And it costs me $600-700 a pop to do that. And so every month we're setting aside dollars to fill that when it gets empty so we can continue to heat our home. Oftentimes when I'm working with folks on budgets and for example, we might be talking about car maintenance and repair, and they'll be like, oh, I just put on new tires. I don't need to worry about that. And I said, this is a perfect opportunity to start saving for that next set of tires, right? How much did you just spend? How long do you expect those to last? We're making it into a SMART goal. And we figure out how much should we be setting aside every month for that next set of tires so we don't have to put 4 tires on credit.
And how did you pay for that expense right now? You know, if you didn't have it planned in and you didn't have money set aside, then it's kind of like, oh, what am I going to take from someplace else, or what am I not going to pay this month in order to get that thing done? And, you know, we don't ever want anybody to be in that kind of a situation. We want to have, you know, their money set aside so that when you need something, you're able to get it.
So when we pay attention to the fixed, flexible, and the periodic or non-monthly expenses, we're getting a really clear picture of what does it cost to live on an average month, right? So maybe we have the kids in daycare during the summer, but let's start saving during the school year perhaps. Or maybe we're saving for a vacation, or we're saving for that next set of tires. Or maybe we're setting dollars aside for anticipated dental work, right? So we want to save up for that. And so I think having a really clear picture of what does it cost to live on an average basis sets people up for success. Also, one more thing, and then I'll give it back to Lori here. Sometimes when I meet with folks, they don't have an income yet. So they are going to be looking for a job and they're like, I don't have an income. I can't do any budgeting. And I'm like, well, yeah, we can. Let's look at what it might cost to live on a monthly basis. If you were to live in an apartment or had a roommate, or what that might be, and we still need to eat. What are you doing for transportation? And by going at it in that way, it really helps people identify how much income do I need to make life like this look like? And then they can start making some decisions on, I'm going to get that roommate because it'll be less expensive because I can't afford to live on my own. Or maybe I can't afford that much of a car payment when I go shopping, right? So I really like to spend time on the 3 types of expenses.
That's so important, Sarah. I can remember when I was also doing some education in correctional facilities, and one individual that had been there since he was, you know, he was basically out of high school and had never had a job. And so when we came to making a plan, he had no idea of where to begin because he didn't know what kind of a job he might get. He didn't know what expenses, what things actually cost if you were to be out in the world. And so thinking some of those things through and you know, thinking about, well, where are you, if you have an idea of where you're going to live, then what kind of expenses, you know, might those be? One other thing I see on our list here of expenses is recreation and entertainment. And I can remember working with a family that we went through everything. They were having issues with, you know, credit and debt issues and spending more than was coming into the home. And as we were talking, you know, their plans seemed to be working out. And I was trying to figure out where is the problem here. And as we started to go through all these categories and, okay, did we miss anything? Oh, we have pets. So, oh, okay, what kind of pets do you have? Well, we have horses. Okay, so they were boarding the horses, they were feeding the horses. Sometimes our recreation, our entertainment, our pets, you know, the things that we enjoy in our lives are so much a part of what we're involved in. We don't even consider what the costs are because they are so much a part when we talk about values. There's so much a part of what we do and who we are that we don't even consider what the expenses are that go along with those things. So, you know, it's important that maybe we don't think we have expenses in all of these categories, but again, to really think through what expenses do we have to make sure we're assessing everything. And then again, on the form here, you see it's a this month and a next month. Okay, so we're in October right now. We are going into November. Hopefully we'll all be able to get together for Thanksgiving and such. So will we have increased food expenses as families come together for celebrations? Things like that. Do we need to make sure that we're adjusting our plan in order to account for some of those things? And so really taking a look at what are we including as our expenses. And then we come to our summary, the bottom line. So our income minus the expenses. And is it a positive number? Is it a negative number? You know, I remember when I first started teaching money management, and if it was a positive number, well, you know, you just go back in and you plug in the number. Can you put that as a set aside amount? Okay, that's fine. If it is a zero balance, I thought, well, you should have something there, right? But if you have a zero balance, hopefully everything's accounted for already. So you've put the money in the plan where it needs to be. If it comes out as a negative number, then we need to go back in and see, have we got accurate tracking from what we had done before? We tracked our expenses. Did we do it accurately? Did something change that we need to make sure that we're accounting for? Are there things that we need to reduce? If we were estimating things, maybe it's not accurate and we just need to watch things carefully in the next month and see, you know, what our actual expenses truly are. But we need to adjust that plan in order to make sure that we're coming out to that zero balance and everything's accounted for and we know where our money is going. And as I said, if there's money left, hey, great, we can find ways to put it in, and those things that we said were important to us for saving goals and such, we can go ahead and do that. Okay. And so then we're talking about managing the plan. And Sarah, how about if I just go a couple more here,
Sounds
and
good.
then
Yep.
I'll let you pick it up, okay?
Great.
So we're looking at determining how that plan is working for us. And we're also comparing, like I was just saying, the actual income with the anticipated income, actual spending with planned spending, making those adjustments as we need to. And we typically talk about the three miracles of money management. We can try to increase our income, we can try to decrease our expenses, or do a little bit of both. And we know that as far as increasing income, sometimes that's not possible. You know, if we're working full-time jobs and we, you know, you need to have some time where you are going to take care of yourself and that as well. But is there something as a side gig that can be done? Maybe a short-term kind of a thing to increase income. You know, I'm in northeastern Minnesota, and one of the things in the fall that happens is people will take on an extra job of collecting boughs. They gather boughs and then they're paid for the boughs, and then people are making wreaths and such. So that might be a type of increased income situation. It may be a short-term kind of a thing, and something that you can live with. Decreasing expenses. Again, we might be looking at what can we do to decrease our expenses. We'll talk about some things some suggestions on ways that we might be thinking about ways to save money, decrease expenses. Or can you do a little bit of both? And how, you know, can you make that balance out a little bit? Okay. So one thing that we have, and you'll be getting this handout as well, is a calendar page. And I just really think this is a nice way. I'm a visual learner, so I feel like this is a good way to be able to look at how we are tracking our spending, seeing when our income is being received. So on the calendar page, you'll be able to put in the days that you're getting paid, and also be able to put the bills and expenses as you pay them. And at the end of each week, it looks at totaling up the income and the expenses. And then there's a summary each week, and helps you plan spending for the next week. Now, I know that there are people that don't like to do budgets, that we say spending and saving plan, because that budget word is sometimes not acceptable, right? And so I always say, let's make it easy for you. Whatever works to make the management of the system the easiest. And what I've often told people is, as you get this calendar page and you're able to take a look at a copy of that, there are no months identified on here or anything like that. You could make 12 copies of this and use them. And I just tell people, take a manila envelope, put this plan on the front of the envelope, and then you're keeping track of the money that's coming in, the expenses that are going out. As the bills come in, I tell them to put the bills inside the envelope. When they pay the bills, put the receipts back in there and then seal it up, and you've got all of your information for the month. And I always like to give that because people think it's so difficult to manage, and there are some things that we can do to make it simple.
Another method that we don't have a slide on is the envelope method. And when you said envelopes, Lori, I thought of that. In its simplest form, we would have a shoebox with an envelope listed for every expense category. So for utilities, for the mortgage, for eating out, for groceries, for clothing, so every gas, the car payment, right on down the line. And when payday comes, we divide cash up into the envelopes that we have identified the amounts on our budget or spending plan. And then during the month, we spend out of those envelopes. And when my grocery envelope is gone, I either stop buying groceries or I have to figure out, can I grab from some of the other envelopes? Now, having cash in envelopes probably isn't the best process for many families for a variety of reasons, but we do have folks that do it similar to that, where they would have the envelopes and they would record as they go or subtracting out so they can keep track of how much they have available for either of those. The beautiful thing is folks really just need to figure out what works for them, because not every method works for everyone.
Sarah, I think too that there are some apps that do kind of a virtual envelope as well. And so that might be an option too, to be looking at, just to, you know, if you can visually see the money going to that envelope and know how much is there. And then again, tracking that as you go along. And then you don't have to worry about the cash being vulnerable to anybody that might get into the home or whatever. Do you want to continue on?
Sure, I sure can. So as we're managing our expenses and our income and the whole plan that we've set forth, we oftentimes need to look at needs versus wants. And I so appreciated that Susan had said earlier, when they prioritize, it's really, they look at what's really needed for the family. So unfortunately, most of us cannot satisfy all of our wants and needs at the same time. And so we do need to do that prioritizing. And so needs, something that's necessary to live a healthy life. Wants, something that's desirable, but not necessary to live. And so when resources are limited, or we find that we have a negative bottom line on our spending plan, it's good to pause and look at needs versus wants. We also encourage folks to identify what those spending leaks are. And if we have a spending plan and we kind of laid out our limits on what we would like to spend on various things, there might be times where we haven't accounted for everything. Or there's some spending that's not getting recorded. And so we have got a fun worksheet. It's called the Case of the Missing Money, and it helps us identify spending leaks. It helps us think about what those costs might be. And
I have it here if you want me to read the scenario.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks.
Okay, great.
Just grabbing my book.
Sure. Marie is trying to follow a spending plan, but money seems to keep disappearing. So we're going to take a look at the situation with Marie's missing money. Okay, and do you want to go on, or do you want me to continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so each day, Marie is buying snacks from a vending machine at work, and she is buying a super muffin for $1, a bag of chips for $1, a bottle of pop for $1.50. So each day she is spending $3.50. Every 5 days, or every work week, basically, she's spending $17.50. Every 4 weeks, $70, and every year, $840. And I actually had one similar kind of activity at one time that talked about the $10,000 snack, because they also put, you know, a interest rate to it, assuming what if she was able to put that money in an account and save. And so there was an interest amount added to it as well, making it the $10,000 snack. So you can see the $840 in a year's time. Think about, you know, what your missing money might be. Identify what those leaks are, and are there alternatives? And if we take a look, what do you think Marie's alternatives might be? If you want to either unmute or share in the chat, please go ahead and do that. What could Marie do?
As folks are identifying some alternatives for Marie, I always think this is challenging for folks, because we need to be really honest with ourselves. And if we have a partner or family members, we need to be honest with them as well, right? And we all have different money leaks, and we'll talk about that missing money. Melissa said she could put that money towards debt. Kathleen says she could bring snacks from home, right? that bottle of pop, she could probably buy a 12 pack for $4 if she gets it on sale. And so those cans are costing her quite a bit less. Buying in bulk, Kimet is indicating definitely. Yep. And Susan, buying pop by the 12 pack or case and taking one of those every day, right? So we're not totally depriving ourselves, but we're figuring out how can we satisfy those wants in a less expensive way. I want folks to take just a minute too and think about some of their missing money. I had shared earlier, I do financial counseling with gamblers on a residential treatment program. They do a lot of reflecting on how much money they'd been spending on lottery tickets or at the casino or at the card table or whatever they were doing with gambling. And so for them, that was pretty substantial. I did some counseling once with Caribou. Thank you. Ditto on Caribou. So for some people, it's coffees or specialty drinks. I did some financial counseling once with a young man who had a lot of chrome on his pickup, and his chrome was where his missing money was going. My dad, bless his soul, passed away this spring, so I'm still sad about that, but he was a smoker for years, right? And so if I were to sit down and figure out how much he spent on smoking over the years, we would probably just cry even more, right? So we have some bad habits at times that cost us a lot of money as well. And so once we really identify what are those costs, we can start brainstorming some alternatives. The gamblers I work with, oftentimes they are smokers as well. Many of them are now rolling their own cigarettes because it's a lot less expensive than buying traditional. So lots of things to think about.
So Alice had a comment. Yeah.
Go for it.
A rule with Amazon and Menards, then you think, if I think I need something, put them on a list and then look back and see if it's still needed. Yeah. And some people will do that as they're in the store with items in the cart. Put them in the cart, walk around a while, and then think about it and go put it back too. So similar kind of thing.
Susan, chai is your favorite. Let me see. I did find the brand our local coffee shop makes and now get it on Amazon, right? Good deal. Well, and so really being honest is helpful. Thank you for sharing on that. So as Lori shared, we have a lot of handouts we're sharing with you. And this is one that I really like because it helps us think about smart changes to save dollars. Where else might we work to cut some of those expenses? And so this worksheet or this handout has, I think, 7 or 8 categories that are listed here on the left-hand side. And so we're going to do a little bit of brainstorming together, a couple categories at a time to see if we can think of some strategies on cutting expenses. And so you can kind of, if you can read the fine print on the first page, but any ideas on planning ahead and shopping around? What are some things we can do, or the do not buy it? And the Menards and Amazon example was perfect, right? You put it on a list, you do not buy it, you reflect on it, and if it is still important, you buy it. But let's, again, you can unmute yourself or share in the chat some examples for planning ahead and shopping around or do not buy it.
So under number 1 on the handout, it talks about plan spending carefully, especially when buying high cost items, comparison shopping before you buy any product or service, including insurance, and looking at catalogs, newspapers, magazines, and online for prices. And then checking out garage sales and discount stores to gather information before you spend money. Shop for clothes after checking to see what you have. Boy, that's my downfall right there. I'm finding out after I bought something that there's something in the closet that might have done just fine. Shopping shop for food at discount grocery stores. Food from convenience stores or fast food is often more expensive. Plan meals for an entire week and make a list. There's that list again.
Melissa just shared meal planning. How many folks do meal planning? Kind of sketch that out for the week and make sure you've got all the right ingredients and avoid those rush trips to the grocery store to fill in. Yep, huge. We have health and nutrition educators, colleagues, SNAP ed educators, FNIP educators that really work with folks on that. Not only does that help financially, but helps nutritionally as well. Oh, Susan, she looks in the cupboard in the freezer to see what she has and tries to plan around that. That really helps for sure. For sure. Any ideas? Go ahead, Lori.
I was just going to say under number 2, don't buy it. If you don't need it, don't buy it. You know, that's a basic piece there. Say no to anything that a salesperson is pressuring you to buy. Look over your cell phone and your phone bills to see if you're paying for services you don't need. I actually did that. Well, the next one then is cable television. And I was telling Sarah the other day, and even though you don't want to sit on the phone and wait for someone sometimes, I was just saying that I saved $40 a month by finding, and it's only for a year, but $40 a month for a year is a fair amount of money to be saving on your cable bill. So I was pretty pleased with that one.
Well, and I think your point is well taken, Lori, to really review those statements that you get. A couple that I was meeting with recently were paying a monthly Amazon Prime membership, and they didn't realize they had been paying it because they never opened their credit card bills every month. Just paid their minimum amount and went on because they were scared to open them, right? The balance was high, but if they had opened it, they would have realized they'd been paying that for many months. And so reviewing those is really important. Use wisely. I like this category, and this is where my mom and dad's voice was in the back of my head, right? We would always need to pick up our bikes and put them in the garage every night. The bikes did not sit in the yard. They did not get rained on. They did not get left on the driveway so they could get run over, right? We took care of what we had so that they lasted. And so my parents obviously influenced me to this day on taking care of what we have. We talk a lot about exercise and good nutrition will pay off in the long run, right? Hopefully that'll help us save on medical bills down the road. As we are entering winter, people are going to start to notice drafty windows and doors. And so if we can take care of some of those maintenance issues so that we're not losing all of that heat as it gets colder. Another thing that I hear my dad's voice a lot is with car maintenance, right? Get your oil changed on time, make sure your tires are inflated. And we know that a happy car is a healthy car, and it's going to last longer because it's not going to cause major issues down the road. When we were talking about meal planning earlier, having a plan for those leftovers, I think I'd seen a statistic that families throw away 30 to 40% of their food because it just spoils in the refrigerator. And so again, having a plan for that, having a plan for the leftovers. And I know our health and nutrition folks at times encourage people make a slightly larger dinner and then use that for lunches the next day so that we're not eating out, that sort of thing. Raven says she uses cash, not credit for purchases, right? So that's one of your filters. If I really want this, I need to know that I can afford it and I'm not putting it on a credit card. Great. Lori, I'm going to let you take the next one, the share, rent, or borrow it.
Okay, great. Yeah, and so let's see, flip it over here. The share, rent, or borrow. Okay, so on that item, we're talking about things like sharing items with family or friends. Just thinking about the borrow it, we needed to move appliances around, and our neighbor has an appliance dolly. Well, we could have rented one, but he said, oh yeah, you can sure use it. And so we had it for a couple of days and borrowed it. So rather than the expense of renting something like that, that's can be, I mean, it's probably not a huge expense, but it's something that we can save as well. I'm looking at participate in community food buying programs. There are some in our region that have, you buy into a group and they buy in bulk. And I see Fair for All is one example of a program. There might be different cooperatives that do those things as well. Rent items that are expensive to buy, such as a garden tiller, for example. That might be something that you don't have use for it, or to keep it in your garage. It doesn't make sense when you only use it one time during the year. So maybe that's something that you could rent, or again, that might be a borrow as well. Check for places in your community that allow people to borrow items instead of renting them. And we've always got to remember our public library has so many opportunities for us to borrow items. A book is just one piece of it, of course, but there are movies that you might be able to borrow, and various other things. Our library system even has a seed library, and so you're able to go and get seeds as well in the spring season and do some planting. And so that's another one that you might think of as well.
Well, many libraries also have free internet, right? So if
Absolutely.
monthly internet fee doesn't fit into a spending plan, going to the library. And I know, Lori, you live across the street from your library, and at times you see people sitting out in their cars accessing the Wi-Fi as well. So we encourage folks to take advantage of those resources that are available. I know the Redwood Falls Library has cake pans, like the Ninja cake pans, or a Star Wars cake pan, or a flower cake pan. So they let people borrow those. So different libraries have really fun things for folks to borrow.
Ours used to even have a toy lending library. So if you didn't want to invest in some of the larger, large muscle group kinds of toys for your kids, you could borrow them and then return them and get something different. And you don't have to worry about not only the expense, but thinking about where do you store these items, as well as when you bring it home, all of a sudden it's a brand new, different toy for a child to be playing with, and something different.
When from a parenting perspective too, it helps children understand how to borrow things and return them in good condition. So that's super cool. Yep. The next one is to substitute it. So do we always need to buy the item that we're looking for? Or are there ways we can substitute things? I love thrift stores, and so I love books, right? So last year, one time I got a cookbook at a thrift store, but it was from restaurant recipes, right? So what are the biscuits that are served at the seafood restaurant, the cheesy biscuits? And they had a recipe in there and they tasted pretty close, right? So are there meals that we can cook at home that mimic what we would maybe get at that restaurant? Thinking about generic and store brands instead of buying name brands as well. And you can pick and choose on those too, but my kids always ate generic cereal. And we chose not to buy generic toilet paper because we weren't satisfied with that. But I have recently decided that I found a store brand Kleenex, and I've been going through a lot of Kleenex with my cold. I found a store brand Kleenex that I'm very satisfied with, and it's soft enough on my nose. There are tons of cleaners on the shelf in the store too. And oftentimes they may not be needed. So are there just a few general cleaners that we can use would be beneficial? Lori talked about the libraries. They also rent, or not rent, but they lend out movies, oftentimes DVDs. So if we decide not to go to the theater, because I always have to have popcorn. Yeah, you said I always have to have, I would like popcorn to go with my movie
Not
at
a
the
need, it's a
theater,
want.
right? So it's not just the movie ticket. For me, I want the popcorn and some soda to go with that. But if I can borrow that movie from the library and use my stir crazy and make some popcorn at home and pop open one of those 12 cans that I got in a 12 pack for not very much money, all of a sudden our date night is a little bit less expensive. Paper towels are always an interesting one too. My daughter's a paper towel user and I am an old rag user. So no clothing or old towels get thrown away in my house. They get cut up or ripped up and we use them for rags for cleaning and different things. And so thinking about, can we substitute that for paper towels? Playing family games, right? Board games or going out in the yard and playing some volleyball or baseball or whatever it might be, rather than paying for expensive entertainment. A riding bike during the summer so we can save on some gas money. If you have access to public transportation, many of our smaller rural communities may not have that, but some do. So are there alternate ways of transportation that we might be able to use? So thinking about substitution is a good idea. Lori, I'm going to let you do sell or trade it.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I don't know if anybody else does this, but I certainly have gotten involved in selling things online, whether it's on our social media or on one of the buying and selling sites. But you know, that's a good way. Also, first of all, you're getting rid of something that maybe you're not using and you're getting some income for those items. So when we talked about, you know, increasing income, decreasing spending, and maybe doing a little bit of both, maybe that's a way that you're picking up a little bit of the income on the side there as well. Trading items, maybe if you have something that someone else can use and they have something that you can use, can you trade those items? I often see those on some of those buying and selling boards too. Are you willing to trade? You know, bartering is an important way to use our resources wisely again as well.
Charmin just suggested bartering in the chat as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I have a friend that when I was single and had my first house, I knew some things about computers. He happened to be able to install carpeting. He installed my carpeting. I taught him some things on the computer. And so, you know, it was a really great way to get my carpet installed and not spend a lot of money to do it. And he got some knowledge out of the deal too. So there's a lot of those types of things that can happen as well. And so if we go on then to, there's another one, find it free. Are there things that you can find free? I mentioned before we got started today, Sarah and I were talking about, you know, chairs. I was looking for a desk chair and looked at our Restore and had the ability to not only look there, but they had some free items as well. And so you might find those things free when you take a look around.
Now, Laura, your Restore, is that like a used?
Yeah, it's a used,
yeah.
It's Habitat for Humanity. And so then they sell things that people have donated, but they also then have some items that are free. And so, you know, you never know what you'll find sometimes, and it might just meet those needs. So it really is about keeping, you know, just looking for those items that you have to be open to it, I guess. And I see we have on here as well, track the little things that add up. We can certainly do that. But I think the bottom line on all of this is our last item is be creative. And so, you know, if anyone has other creative ideas that maybe weren't listed, we'd certainly love to hear those as well. A lot of ideas. I would also say that America Saves, if you're looking to think about ways to save some money or, you know, divert some money into some other goal, you can take a look at americasaves.org and they have a lot of great ideas there. So another good source for you. Okay. We wanted to share the worksheets that you're going to be getting. We've talked about this already a little bit, but we will be getting these out to you, and we'll also be putting that in the chat. Sarah, I don't know if you can grab that right now. But what we're going to do is have a Google Drive folder for you to be able to get a download of the materials, but then Charmin is going to also send you out by mail the worksheets, the handouts that we've been talking about tonight, and the ones that we will have next week as well. And so then you can use the things that we've talked about today. As we were talking about some of the smart changes to save dollars, you know, there are a lot of examples on there. We just kind of went through quickly some of the hit the high points of that. So you might find some things that work for you on that. We talked about the spending plan, the tracker, the calendar page, case of the missing money. And so all those things that you can consider that we talked about tonight. Wondering if you have any questions, any comments or thoughts as we're kind of winding things down now for the evening. And we went through a lot, you know, all the goal setting and making and managing a spending plan. Any thoughts or questions that have come up over the last hour as we've been talking? And you probably heard I have a little visitor with me tonight. My cat doesn't like to be without me, I guess. But
Okay, so Alice is asking for any digital resources. So there are a variety of apps out there that help folks track money or budget money. The Mint is one of those, and maybe Lori, we can bring some additional suggestions next week for sure to share those. Alice,
yeah, I think is it mint.com? I'm thinking. One thing to be aware of some of those things. I know that I've been interested in using Mint, but my credit union does not provide links to the Mint, and so just know that. I mean, if you have one of the larger banks, you're probably just fine. But with small town kinds of things, you may not have that access.
Alice, do you have some apps or digital resources that you found helpful when working with clients?
I personally have used Fetch Rewards. I don't know if anybody's heard of that app. You just basically take a picture or you scan a receipt and then you earn points. And once you earn so many points, you can get gift cards towards like different stores, like anything from Home Depot to Walmart to a $10 reward right now for Bath and Body Works. That I'm holding on to until Christmas time, you know, it just kind of thing. So it lets you earn gift cards. It's
what
called
was the name of it?
Fetch Rewards. And it's an app that you can download on your phone.
Yeah, there are a number of those that you can get rewards for using. I think the one thing to just be aware of is, you know, what kind of information are they asking?
They don't ask for any bank account or anything like that. You strictly earn a gift card.
Okay.
So then
yeah,
you can
great.
scan, you know, you can have that scanned at a store. So yeah, that's.
Yeah, because I just want people to be, you know, aware. I mean, if you didn't go to Fetch Rewards and found some other thing that you thought was comparable, just to be aware of those things, because some will ask for information. Some will have you do surveys and things like that and share information through those types of things in order to earn some rewards. So just to be aware of some of those things and just be a smart consumer and what are they asking for and what are you getting? So if you're able to get reward cards, you know, gift cards and not have to provide things like that, that's a great opportunity.
We can definitely look at some possible digital things to
Yeah.
talk about next week. Or I'm thinking that might even be a really interesting session into 2022, because there are a variety of things, and Lori's been talking about some of the safeguards and you know, when do we know it's safe and when do we not know? And so I appreciate that, Susan. Melissa said she's excited to be working on a budget. Great.
Good. Just to note, there are some good apps. I know that there are some, just looking through my phone here, because every time when we go to our AFCPE conference and somebody starts talking about the latest app that they're using and things, I try to download them and take a look at them. And so I'm seeing what's on my phone yet that I've kept. I know there was one for couples dealing with money. I'm trying to find it here, so I have a name for you, but we can try to pull some of those together so that we have kind of a list of some items that you might be able to use. Yeah.
So on the screen is one of our last slides. So if possible, we'd like you to share one thing that you learned today and one action you'll take as a result of today's webinar. And Melissa said she's going to start working on a budget, so that's super cool. You could take just a minute and share.
That is cool. Sometimes you get inspired to do something and you want to do it right away, and while you're still thinking about it, and that's a great opportunity to take advantage of. Okay, Susan, you're going to write down expenses every day. Great. And I see commit suggestions about budgeting and track spending. Great. Yeah, that tracking sometimes, you know, we start off with good intentions, but we have to find ways to keep on doing that so that we can get to that month. If you can do it for a couple of weeks, you can do it for a month.
Well, as people are writing those items in the chat, we just want to remind folks that the next webinar is 1 week from today at same time, same place, same URL. So we hope folks will come back and you know, we'll be talking about next steps as well, and the questions and the comments and the pieces that folks bring up, such as the financial apps or talking with kids about money. How do we teach our children some of those things that will help inform the next steps into the new year as well. Great.
Well, again, thanks everyone. I see someone here. Oh, Alice has said she's used DollarWorks several years for parent education. When she took the class, I was able to save $40 a week by not buying at convenience stores. Okay, that's great. Yeah. And sometimes it takes a little bit of inspiration. Like I said, you know, you get motivated and then you go out and do it. Keeping that inspiration is sometimes the tough part, or we fall back into habits that we've had. So hopefully we'll get people inspired to do some other things here too.
Charmin, do you have any last words as we send people off? Nothing like putting her on the spot there.
Actually, interesting enough, I was just putting in the chat that I wanted to thank everyone for their presentations of that and for all that attended. And I will be making sure that you receive your handouts. I think I'll be receiving them late this week, and so you can probably get those next week. But I did learn a lot. I reviewed a lot and thought about a lot. And again, I just want to thank you all so much for this good presentation. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Charmin, and we're happy to be partnering with you.
Okay. And oh, maybe one other thing I should ask Sarah. Sarah should send me the brand of that Kleenex because I think I need it. You can
I will. Yeah, I will do that. I hate to promote one product over another, but it is
Right.
expensive and it's good on my nose. And actually,
Okay.
my husband brought it home by accident, and I was like, "Where's my name brand? I need it." And
Yeah.
it worked out really well. So
Okay.
accident was a success.
Yeah, I'll appreciate that. So send me that on email. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
All right.
We'll see you
Thanks,
next
everyone.
week.